Greetings, everyone. Welcome to my sketchbook. I just wanted to say thank you for those of you who take the time to write a comment. I actually do read them. I get a kick out of that stuff. So thank you for that interaction. Every so often, I like to think about some pretty strange things. Let's see what I can come up with here just for fun. And I'm going to zoom in here. I'll try to keep an eye on this, although I don't really like to keep an eye on that stuff. Because, yeah, I'm not always looking at the camera screen, that kind of thing. I'm going to start with the eyes as I normally will do. Let's see, where am I here? All right. So I'm going to kind of sketch this out. And by sketch, I mean I'm going to put in a lot of little lines, which is a really fun way to just pick what lines I want to keep. Now, if I was doing this in pencil, I could erase the ones that I don't really want, but I'm not doing this in pencil, which means most of the little mistakes that I end up making, well, I'm going to end up keeping. So that's fun. What I'm drawing here is, well, let's say someone who has been around for a little while, perhaps even longer than me. So it's going to happen to a great many of you, where as you get further along in this life, you are going to get older. And that's a good thing. Don't be sad about that. You may find, though, that recovering from falls is not going to be nearly as much fun. That to me is probably one of the most disappointing parts about getting older, is the recovery. Now, if I could, here's another bonus thing. I would take a pill, although it's not available, that would let me, well, that sounds terrible, actually. Anyway, I hate sleeping. I don't like going to sleep. For some reason in my brain, that is like a waste of time. You need sleep. That's where you are going to do most of your recovery. So yeah, but if I could, I would not need sleep. But man, you need it. So right now, I'm thinking about skateboarding and how when I was a kid, it was pretty rare to see someone wearing a helmet while they were skateboarding. I don't think we would have made fun of somebody for doing that. It's just it wasn't really common to see. Now, weirdly though, I did go out of my way to get certain things protection wise. So I put on elbow pads because I took some pretty hard spills and smashed my elbow to the ground. And I was like, yep, didn't like that so much. So I got elbow pads. And then some other stuff that I would have got was like hand and wrist protectors, because, well, when you get hurt, you kind of learn a lesson. And I think some of those lessons, if you're lucky enough, you recover from. So with a helmet, I'm not sure if this really applies anymore. Maybe, if you feel like commenting about this, you can add this in. I believe there was kind of like a rule when it came to fitment of your safety equipment, you would go with like 2 finger widths, like above your eyebrow. And then how this was strapped on, there was 2 other things. So you wanted a V shape to go on either side of your ears. And then as far as snugness around your chin, you want it to be like maybe 2 fingers. I think it was called the 2-2-2 or something like that. So the concept of that had to do with making sure the gear that you wore fit you properly. Oh, I am going to make sure that the strap is kind of seen underneath here. Although this is supposed to be some version of a beard. But I want this equipment to show. Yeah. So yeah, safety equipment. I'm telling you, you will get tricked into some horrific, life-changing moments if you don't have safety equipment. I know people who have sustained head injuries like years and years ago who haven't recovered from that. And that to me is kind of scary. You don't want to play those games. Now what I'm doing, I think I'm going to have this person kind of hunching a little bit, even though I want them to be a little bit older. And I will fill in the pupils thereafter in my little sketch. I have them wearing a watch. Now watches are kind of rare nowadays, actually. You don't really see people wear watches. Maybe in the next video I'll show you like maybe I'll show you a watch or 2 or something like that. But now it's a strange kind of fashion statement if you have a watch, because most of us have cell phones. And with a cell phone, you have time. How remarkable is that ridiculous thing to have a cell phone? Wow, I really picked a weird style to go with here. It's going to determine certain details. So if it was slightly more cartoony, I could probably just get away with it. Oh man, I chose the wrong thing. Anyway, well, you do what you're capable of, right? Something that I'm going to ramble on about that popped into my head. Do you ever hear people say that age is just a number? Yeah, I don't believe that. There are certain things that are age appropriate, kind of. And when you hear people say that age is just a number, well, try to figure out what exactly they mean by that, because are they just saying that because, you know, they're dating someone who's half their age? You know, like, what are you talking about? Now, it's cool to hang out with people that, like, oh, one of my absolute favorite people to hang out with was, you know, my grandfather, who he lived a completely different life than me. But man, hanging out with my grandfather was awesome. Put some fingernails in here. You know, I know people who are a fair bit younger than me, and they're cool to hang out with because sometimes you have like interests, like whatever kind of stuff. But there are certain things and certain people and relationships that I don't know if I'd really say are appropriate, if that makes sense. Going with bonus safety equipment here, by the way. Go with the elbow pad. So that's something to keep in mind. There's certain activities, I guess you could say, too, that are very much age appropriate. There's certain shows that are made kind of age appropriate, and whatever you can do, uh, avoid certain things as much as you can, because information is one of those things that kind of determines some part of your age. Like sometimes you find out stuff way too early and you're like, "Boo, I wish I didn't know that." That can kind of age you. Um, Maybe some part of these eyes need to be a little bit softer. And now that I have something to look at without being too cross-eyed. I want those eyebrows to be a little more prominent, raised up. So I think that looks a little bit older. Yeah, they really go out of their way to make it seem like certain things are super fun, and like there's some pretty violent video games out there, and I don't think it's cool for some people to get into that stuff in general, let alone, um, you know, little kids. So if you're super young, avoid that stuff. Stay a kid as long as you can, because there's a lot of horrific things you just don't need to be a part of. Protect your brain, you know what I mean? Uh, where did I see something kind of zany in relation to this? I remember seeing there was like somebody talking about Lego and how there was like an age limit. You know, it's good for people between the ages of, maybe it was 3 and 99. It's like, you know, now that Nana is 100, well, she can't play with Lego anymore. That's funny. What do I have floating around in my head now? Well, let's put another. I'm going to dip this pen. I have another inkwell that I'm going to get into here soon enough, because this one is just about done. Ooh, this is going to be a fun opportunity. I'm going to put in a finger here. Now, when I got into skateboarding, would have been in the mid 1980s. And I was born in the mid 1970s. What am I getting at? Oh, and as a bonus, if you've been here before, and again, I'm not always going to do this kind of stuff, but man, I get a kick out of seeing a raised pinky. You ever see people drinking tea or coffee? Anyway, that pinky seems a little too small, but that's okay. I'll get over that. The shape. You know what? I don't know if I need that pinky there. That looks a little weird. That's what I get for not planning this out. The shape of skateboards changed in the 1980s. Now, it could have something to do with wanting more stability for riding. There was a point where you would get like a skateboard that would be honestly, it was like this little skinny plastic. Most of them were plastic. You'd get them made out of wood too. I'm going to back this out a little bit. Maybe not that much. But they were like these little skinny plastic boards with like roller skate wheels. Oh, they were rough, man. And I remember seeing one of these, sort of a wider deck things, and thinking, oh, that'd be way better on like a hill. So this fish shape became pretty popular. And they were a different machine too. Let's have this thumb would be just on the side here. So let's see. I'm going to put one of the trucks here. So this would be, you would have bushings, and you would have the axles that would come out of this. It would allow you to tilt the board to turn. The wheels themselves, you could get like a hardened rubber, or you could get like polyurethane. They could be application specific. So certain densities of materials were better for the street, more so than riding on a ramp. So certain sort of technical aspects, I suppose, came about. Let's go with another one here, roughly. Now, I do still ride. It's a different push, though, nowadays. Now, it's wintertime, so, I'm not really getting out there. And in general, I don't really get out there and ride like I used to. It was a different mode of transportation, let's just say. Now I get in a car and I'm going someplace, but when I was a kid, it was like, well, I didn't have a car. So what you do is you'd mount your skateboard kind of on your BMX bike. So for me, I would put it over the handlebars and I would like tie it on. And that thing, like, we didn't have skate parks. So your favorite spots to go riding might be like fresh paved roads. Oh, that was the best. Or like, concrete. And I remember after a while, there was somebody that managed to build a half pipe. And of course, I rode a skateboard like this. Skateboards like this are built, I'd say, to go a specific direction. So whether you rode like a standard or like a goofy foot, which would be your lead foot would be your right foot. The shape of this board kind of determined the direction that you were going. So let me complete a couple of things here. Skateboards at this point, if you wanted one of your favorite riders' skateboards, in this time period, this deck would cost you $75 and up, which was a significant amount of money, because like I used to cut lawns and rake grass and do all that kind of stuff. And that wasn't huge money. This was like, to do that stuff wasn't huge money. Like now, if you cut someone's lawn or whatever, you can charge a lot more money. But back then, no, wasn't a huge amount of money. To protect your investment, you would get like this nose guard here, down here at the base, at the kick end. You get this sort of like a stomp brake pad that would protect the tail of your skateboard. And almost super importantly, you get these sort of slide rails that go on either side to protect that paint job. So if you got like your favorite skater's signature model, you didn't wreck the face of your skateboard. So that would happen. Get these plastic kind of runner things. You could also get them for your trucks too, weirdly enough. They look like little mini ramps. And that would prevent grinding those things down, because those weren't cheap. Sort of at that point, the two main manufacturers of these skateboard axle or trucks, you get Tracker, or you would get like Independent. Now I use the Independent, but I mean, I've had a lot of skateboards. There you go. So that's a skateboard. As far as cool fashions, well, let me see. I probably wore a lot of loose stuff. Weirdly enough, some of these things, they actually would protect you a bit too. And yeah, no, clothing was a different thing. Now, I think with a lot of us, what we kind of caught on to came from picking up a skateboarding magazine. And, you know, we basically sounded like little Ninja Turtles running around at this point, just saying stuff like, you know, cowabunga or radical or whatever. But it very much was a subculture of sorts. You know, you'd listen to different types of music. I probably talked about this on the channel before, but I blame, and this is unrelated to skateboarding, this is more of a snowboarding thing, which I was into as well. I blame Warren Miller. This is sad. I'm bringing this up. I blame Warren Miller and the movies that he made and produced for some of my favorite injuries, because you would get you get the latest Warren Miller movie, and you'd watch somebody flying through the air, and he would do things in slow motion. I was well aware this was in slow motion, but when you're watching somebody doing like a trick in slow motion, and they're in the air for, let's say, on film, it looks like 30 seconds. You think you have all the time in the world to twist something out, when really you're in the air for 3 seconds. So, you know, you're landing fully backwards a lot, and it's like, wow, thanks, Warren Miller. I thought I had all the time in the world. I'm not really blaming Warren Miller. There were lots of people that made, you know, riding films and whatnot. So I can't really blame him for making like majestic looking things. What was I gonna do? Oh, let's put in like a cool T-shirt. So I had a bunch of T-shirts that I used to think were pretty cool. Um, this is a company that's been around for a while. I'm not sponsored by them. I just buy their stuff, so I'm cool with that. The what was I saying about the subculture? The magazines were also kind of good for that as well. Uh, of course, they were sponsored, right? Um, you'd be like, oh, why is that person wearing that? Well, of course, we knew somebody would be getting paid to wear that stuff, but it helped determine what you wanted out of uh, the clothing and its functionality. And there were companies that were skater owned. Um, so you did your best to support them too. And then you knew that they were also a little bit like you in a way that, you know, you'd push hard out there and you'd do your very best to land those tricks, and you'd see that they weren't really like corporate, if that makes sense. Like you knew that uh, Christian Hosoi actually rode. So you'd be like, yeah, you know, this isn't like Evil Corp just cashing in on youth culture. I mean, those guys had to make a living, and you kind of caught on to that, and you were okay with that. So, uh, and a lot of the times, that stuff was made a little bit better too. So, I think now you'll see people walking around. They might have like uh, gear that was once associated with, well, let's say construction. So, like Dickies, for example. Uh, but they were just like, it was better made stuff. This is going to be a long shirt, I guess, huh? So, yeah, I had some cool Vision Streetwear. Still do. Although mainly now, I put on like a camp shirt, a Hawaiian shirt. That's kind of more my everyday functionality kind of a thing. Where are we at time wise? 28 minutes. Almost 29 minutes. Well, let's let this kind of come to an end here, I think. I don't need to drag this out too much. I did a lot of rambling. Let's do some stylish things, I think. I'm gonna grab this and scoot in a little bit of red on this one. A little bit of red here. I'm gonna hit the drawing up with some water and a brush, I think, just for fun. Let's go with it dark down here. So yeah, getting back to the age thing. You do what you're capable of. But don't get tricked into thinking that somehow age is just a number. You know, if you're a senior citizen, you might be given the opportunity to save a couple of bucks when you go to the movies. Yeah, don't frown on that. You earn that. If you're a kid and there's a movie that, you know, people are talking about, and you're like, oh, well, you know, it's not really geared for someone my age, avoid it. Avoid that thing, because, man, it's just some information you don't need. You don't need that information floating around in your head. Avoid that. What do I need to do with this now? With your skateboard, well, if you were so lucky enough, you could get stickers and you could put stickers on it. So let's put some stickers. How about right here? Put that play button, I think, just for fun. Just sort of a YouTube symbol. I don't know if you can get a sticker that says YouTube, but whatever. Something like that. Right here, I'll say oh. I wonder if I have enough room. Start a little low and then I'll kind of work my way. Let's put a sticker here. What could that be? Can't tell. This is going to be an awesome dragon. You only have so much room, so I've met a lot of pro skaters, and those guys and gals are pretty cool. They're into it because it's fun, right? And the hope is that they can keep at it for as long as they can. That's always cool. I don't know if I need to go any further than that. I think I could probably get away with leaving it like that. I could rough in a couple of things, I suppose. Make sure we have knee pads. Because I think that's super important. I rambled on so much that I put time into stuff that I could have gotten away with just leaving rough detail with, I guess, like what I'm doing right now. Do I want to put, yeah, whatever. Well, the knee should have been a little bit lower, but let's do the lower part of the knee pad then. We'll do a slight correction. Just like that. Get our bony legs. And gotta have the skate shoes. When it comes to skating, you know what? You can wear pretty much whatever you feel like, but you know, it kind of depends on how your grip tape is set up, and you know, it's all about how you control the board, right? So I think for a lot of skaters, the ideal shoe is a flat shoe, like flat bottom shoe. Because it's a nuisance to just slip and slide all over the place on top of the board when you want to be able to control it. So yeah, I almost feel bad I didn't put more time into some of this, but I can do whatever I like, and you have the ability on your end to fast forward or, you know, watch part of this at one time. But I didn't want all my videos to be like, you know, 45 minutes. Now let's do this other leg here. And luckily right beside me I have this as a reference. Drop in the other shoe here. So I'm not perfectly up on whatever the cool terminology for stuff nowadays. You know, I don't really buy those magazines anymore, so I don't know, you know, all the cool names and what stuff's been named after who and that kind of thing. So, you know, stale fish, fakey, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the ride culture. The same. Things change, right? Something that I would have known could go by a different name now. You know, someone could fly through the air and land funny and recover, and all of a sudden it goes by a different name now. That trick that I would have seen, all of a sudden it goes by, you know, Jenny's new hip move or whatever. I don't know. That stuff's funny to me. Oh, let's go with a different looking sock here, because you know, you just grab something out of the drawer. I'll tell you as a little secret, the vast majority of socks that I have are all like just black socks, unless it's like a sport sock thing. But that way I could just throw socks into a drawer and then reach in and grab, you know, two, and they're going to match. So it saves me a lot of hassle. Shirts are always a little bit different. There you go. So let's back this out a little bit more. Okay. Semblance of a pocket here, maybe. And I don't mind that so much. Now, I have a cup here with some water in it, some fresh water, because I trade that out. Now is when I'm going to take the time. Oh, before I do that, let's add a little scratch or two down here. Make up the shadow. And this is the part where you'll hear me say, oh, this is where I can potentially ruin this. And I'm cool with that because in my sketchbook, I'm not trying to make everything perfect. The whole point of me doing this has to do with kind of like experimenting and having fun and dumping out my brain and that sort of thing. So I'm not really going for perfection all the time, which is unattainable, by the way. And this is kind of in more of my style of doing things. We should all be so lucky to take a moment, figure out what we want. I do draw in different styles. I like cartoony type things. Yeah. This is kind of more my thing, I think, in a lot of ways. Not perfectly realistic. I'm capable of spending a lot more time on things, though, which I'm cool with. Let's see. Let's play around with this brain bucket a little bit. Let's add a little bit to it. We'll pretend that it's whatever your favorite color is. If you don't have one of these and you skateboard, please figure out what you want your brain used for, because it's really annoying to let your head hit the ground and, you know, take that sweet ambulance ride and then have your loved ones look at you while you look at them and don't really know who they are because that's how hard you hit the ground. I've had some pretty hard falls, and I can tell you, having that safety gear, whew, what a difference that makes. I know someone who on a bicycle had a wicked fall, and I tell you, Rob's still on the planet because he had a helmet on. So I encourage you, please protect your brain. That soft thing inside your skull, man, oh man, oh man, you need that thing. I'm almost done here. So if you've been here before and you've subscribed and all that stuff, well, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for leaving me little messages. That's pretty cool. Thanks for liking and all that stuff too, which is all right. If there's some wacky things you'd like to see me attempt to draw, well, I can do that. That's fun. By no means am I an expert in all this stuff, but I've been around for a little while. All right. Just sort of finishing up some of what I like to call the shadow works, but sometimes I call it the wet works, but that's a whole different thing. terrifying. If you like, I can probably do a little bit of a zoom in on some of this. And I don't mind that I have that pinky raised there, and I don't know if any of you really noticed that. That's a weird thing that I get a kick out of. So if you go back through some of my old videos, you'll be like, what is this about? Yeah, no, I just get a kick out of that. It's like, you know, sitting around with my grandfather, we would drink tea, and to be hilarious, we would raise our pinkies and get a laugh out of my grandmother, because, you know, that was the bougie thing to do. That's refinement, to raise your pinky as you're drinking your tea. We used to dump the tea out on the saucer as well, and that would help cool it faster. Now, after my grandmother had passed, my grandfather would really just dump his tea into a mug and like a coffee cup. There is a difference, weirdly enough, from a teacup to a coffee cup. But anyway, yeah, just dump it into a coffee mug. So we didn't drink tea the same way anymore without my grandmother there to laugh at that. I think that's going to be it. I put in a little bit of work on that. The last few videos have been kind of longer, huh? Let's move this cup off. Actually, I'm going to set it on the floor because that's what I typically do. Because when you kick it over, you're not going to make a huge mess. Pick up this pen for a moment here. And let's see. Okay. I don't mind that so much. It's a little bit more time than I was wanting to do, but as I said, I'm not really pressed for time when it comes to just doing this. So I'm just going to do an outline of the entire thing, which is kind of in my style to do. Darker line on the outside of things, and then keep the detail and all that other kind of stuff on the inside lighter. And I'm not sure why I do this. It could be from looking at stickers, or it could be from... Now, I don't always do this, mind you. But anyway, it could be from coloring books. Yeah, it's just weird. It's awesome. It's fun. Whatever. As I said, I don't always do this, but okay. By the way, and I will say this again, do yourself a favor, get yourself a helmet, protect your brain, exercise your brain by doing and challenging yourself with things that may seem kind of uncomfortable. You know, here's something that I try to do every so often. This is going to be a crazy thing. So bottle caps, like the plastic ones, if you have 5 or 6 bottle caps, let's say uh, one of them is black and the rest are all white, or one of them is red. This is a crazy one. Get ready for this. Put them in a jar or a hat or whatever, and then see if you can feel the vibrational difference in the colors. And see if you can pull the odd one out. I don't even know if that's possible. Man, that's a funny thought. Could you imagine having the ability to sense? Because, like, everything, like, you know, this this color, this is a different sort of vibration. This is a different frequency. Does that make sense? So if you can sense the difference between bottle caps as being like, oh, I know I could feel the difference between red because this seems to vibrate faster than, black. Hey, that'd be a cool thing. That's a party trick that your buddies would be like, "Hey, come on over. I want you to show people this." Oh, you could go on TV with that. Um, well, that was a tangent. All right. Well, let's finish this up. Hey, thanks for hanging out. And yeah, come back again. We'll just see if we can do something else kind of wacky. All right. Ciao for now.